So for those who are here for the first time, Effiespiration is a series of knowledge sharing sessions introduced by Effie Awards Sri Lanka to inspire the advertising and marketing fraternity. Speaking of inspiration, we are in need of inspiration today more than ever, right? Every day has become a challenge for us. So I'm sure most of you must be really busy these days writing and finalizing your FE entries. So today we have a very relevant topic to discuss. So we have two experts from the industry to talk about how to write an award-winning entry. So without any further ado, let me introduce today's speakers. The moment I say their names, I'm sure you all know them very well, but let me do a quick formal introduction before I hand over them to begin the session. We have Famil Izzeth, currently a group account director at Mahanama, Sri Lanka. Famil has a career in advertising spanning over 10 years, and he has worked in multinational and independent agencies, both in Sri Lanka and in Australia. And he has experience working for global brands such as EA Games, Oracle, Intercontinental Hotels, and Unilever brands. And next, we have Wajinie Mahanama. She's also an account director at Malaldo, Sri Lanka. Wajinie has been in the industry for over 10 years, handled brands ranging from growing up milk to telco, banks, pre-hospital care, food, personal care, and more. So both Famil and Wajinie has bagged many industry awards over the years, and they are here today to share some of their insights and wisdom with us. So let's hear them out. And towards the end of the session, we can have a small Q&A to discuss whatever the questions you all have. So you can use the inbox. You can send your questions during the sessions. We'll be taking it up towards the end. Famil, Wajinie, over to you guys.
Thank you, Amma. Thanks for the lovely introduction.
Thank you, Amma. So like Amma was saying, Mondays are generally not the best of days, and we know how hectic and crazy it can be. So thank you to everyone who has attended today. I know you've taken time off a very busy schedule. So thank you from the both of us. So before we move into the presentation, we'll just quickly take you through what our thought process is and what exactly we will be sharing with you today. So when it comes to award-winning entries, there is so much that we really need to learn and we need to be kind of aware of. So what Famil and I have done is we have generally as a practice, we go through a lot of FE reports, which are written by judges, by committees across the world. So we have sort of grasped some of the key points which we feel would be relevant for today's session. As soon as that's done, we will move into a series of case studies, which generally all of us love to watch, and we will conclude the session thereafter. To start with, one thing is we really need to understand what is the reality, like what is the environment in which we operate. So when you look at it, one of the key factors we have to always keep in mind is the fact that we operate in a measurement focused as well as a data driven world. Measurement focused because we have a series of metrics that we have to stick by. We have objectives we have to achieve, and then we need to ensure that those are achieved. So all of these have to be in line with everything that we do. Same goes for a data driven world. So especially in the last couple of years, the word data has really hit literally everything that we do. We go by data. Data is very important, even when it comes to identifying a target audience, trying to figure out what it is we should do, what is the future like, what are the opportunities we have. Everything relies on data. So when it comes to creative campaigns, generally we tend to battle between two things. One is the effectiveness of the campaign. How do we showcase it? How do we really justify and show the effectiveness? But at the same time, how do we fight for and how do we explain the value of our work? Coming into one straight line on these two is never an easy task, and it's a journey, and we all know it. So all the campaigns that we do, especially from an awards point of view, we have to ensure that it's effective. It has to be creative, measurable by all means, and it has to deliver exponential business results. When these are achieved, we know we are on the right path. So what we are looking at today is we are trying to see what are the kind of, what do we have to do to ensure that our campaign ends up being a transformational campaign, because it's only then that you know that you are on the path to winning metal at awards. One of the key points that we really need to look into is our objectives. Our objectives must be clearly defined, they must be relevant, and they must be measurable. Because from get-go, it's your objective that really, makes way for everything that you do. At the end of the campaign, we have to check and see, have our objectives been met? So everything relies on this. We need to ensure that all objectives are very clear and that you are able to measure success against it. Also, it's only when we have clearly defined objectives that we are able to come up with clear, innovative solutions for business problems. Then we all know this is like a mantra we tend to go by, less is more, we have to be precise. Again, when it comes to our marketing programs or the campaigns or anything that we are aiming to achieve, we have to make sure that we don't have a lot of objectives in mind, that we are focused. It could be one key objective, 2, 3 at the most, but they have to be in line with one thought process. And so when our objectives are streamlined, when it's clear, we have greater clarity in terms of the purpose, what really we want to achieve. And with that, when it comes to the execution, you realize that it's a lot more, it's less complex, and it's a much easier journey for all parties. Then research and data. So when it comes to research, we know that sometimes it tends to be a luxury. Not all companies might have the budgetary requirements to run research as and when required. But how this would help, especially in terms of an FE entry or any entry case study, submission, would be that when you do research, you are able to dive into a lot more details when it comes to your target audience. And this helps you realize or understand what is the path that you're going to take for your campaign. Also, I think one of the key areas where this comes into play is when it comes to the planning process of campaigns, because that's really where the entire process starts. So when we are able, if we do have access to data and research and things like that, it really helps. And at the end, it also helps you to validate the work that you have done. Because then okay, we've done everything in line and this is the reason we've done it. So it acts as a validation as well. Then one before the last is the right communication mix. So here what judges generally say is that it's not necessary to reach out to a lot of different mediums. What is important is you really identify your target audience, you realize what is the most effective way to reach them, and then you should ideally choose one hero medium. You can have all the other mediums, relevant mediums to your target audience as contributors, as the helpers who help you achieve your overall objective. And at the same time, now we've seen, especially from the last couple of years, that the fact that digital is booming. Again, if you are using digital, it's advisable to not use digital just for the sake of it. You need to have a purpose. You need to know why you're using digital. Who are you trying to reach with it? And what are the objectives you're trying to achieve? All these things have to be properly thought through if we are using digital. Then we have the last one. This is a critical measurement of how our campaign has worked. It shows whether, so an impressive return on investment would actually show, okay, have you achieved your objectives? Have you achieved everything that you set out to achieve with this campaign? This is really, really critical. We need to at least reach our objectives, or we have to exceed. So that is one of the key metrics that defines and says, okay, everything you've done from point one has worked brilliantly well. So with this, I will share a couple of case entries that have been entered and that have won awards, and thereafter Famil will also share some very interesting entries with you. The first one is Marmite, a brand that all of us know. We all know that it is the market leader in the yeast extract category. And it's also a brand that you either love it or you end up hating it. And this has been a global campaign which has been cascaded into the different markets, and we all know about it. It's an old brand. It's also a brand that has a very long pantry life. So if you tend to buy a bottle, it tends to be around for a long time. But one thing that we identified is now Marmite has to grow, because if you look at the competition has been increasing. You've got your cheese spreads to your jams to chocolate spreads, all these other products coming in, and they tend to be tastier, this, that, and the other. So how do we still stay on top of the game was something that we had to consider. So here what we did was, we realized that we have been limited to two formats of consumption. All of us know it. We either just apply it on toast or a slice of bread and we consume it, or we have it in the form of a soup or a drink. I know this because I live near a temple, and whenever the monks fall sick, the first thing my mother does is she makes a big mug of Marmite and she goes and gives it to them. So whenever they're sick, they actually expect it. So there are moments that we have, sort of associated with this brand, and there are very, very limited ways of how we consume it. So what the teams got together and did was, they sort of started pairing Marmite with other types of food just to see how it would work. They mixed it with rice, noodles, kottu, biscuit, apply it on biscuits and all of it, and they just tried it and realized those who love Marmite will still love food with Marmite in it, because Marmite gives you a distinct flavor. It actually adds to the flavor of the food that you are consuming. So this became a winner, and then we realized that we can actually go to town with it. We can really create a campaign out of it. And the campaign was called Mealtime Magic with Marmite. And we know that this campaign worked because a lot of people started experimenting. They started sharing their experiences with the teams on digital, and it was definitely a hit because, like I said, the ROI really is a critical measure of success, and we have achieved all objectives. Actually, we have exceeded objectives. So I will move on to show you the case entry for this. I hope y'all can hear the video.
Marmite. It's a love-hate love affair. Like all other relationships, Marmite faced its fair share of tests. Let's face it, Marmite has an extended shelf period. Therefore, the younger consumers took the brand for granted. Although the brand wanted to make a mighty comeback and rekindle its relationship with consumers,
Pizza Mite, yummy, yummy Marmite, Roti Mite,
Rice Mite,
yummy chicken curry Mite.
a Marmite spoonful sends the flavor out of sight.
Marmite was far from a happy ending. Because there was still a matter of, how can Marmite spice up its image and stop Marmite consumers from flirting with the flashier and newer bread spreads again? One of the world's best-kept secrets was that die-hard loyal fans of Marmite loved to experiment. That's right, they went all out, put it on anything and everything. So we used Marmite's unique taste and texture to give run-of-the-mill dishes a makeover, so the new school of Marmite lovers have something new to relish every day. We unleashed an entirely new range of Mite combos that highlighted the culinary fluidity that is unique to Marmite. Social media became a culinary haven with pasta Mite, wade Mite, cake Mite, and many a Mite recipes, tingling all taste buds in all the right ways. Even the online community flooded the Marmite page with their favorite Mite recipes. Soon, celebrity chefs and popular food critics wanted a bite out of the Mite mania. So we hosted a series of events with a magical Marmite twist. From brunch Mite, noodle Mite, cocktail and mocktail Mite to the popular chocolate Mite. The campaign was further strengthened with the colourful Mite recipes. Marmite lovers, old and new, had plenty of options when we were done. The age-old adage, the way to a person's heart is through their stomach, proved to be true.
Okay, so I would also like to say that I have tried this, and if there are anybody who likes Japanese food, you should definitely dabble like a Marmite on it, and you will see a big difference. Okay, so next we move on to a Lifebuoy case, which is from one of the Mulando network companies. That's Mulando Rao from Pakistan. So this is quite new. In about 2 months ago, in July, they actually had Effie Awards, and they won 2 bronze awards and a gold award for this particular entry. So they entered under Positive Change Social Good. They won a bronze. They also entered under Personal Care. They won another bronze. And they entered under the category of Crisis Response, where they won a gold. So Lifebuoy, we all may know this. It's a 100-year-old brand. And for decades, all they've been talking about is protecting people. They keep telling you, wash your hands, be germ-free, take care of yourself and your family. This has been like a mantra. This is the message that we keep sharing with the public. However, relating to the Pakistan market, one of the bigger battles that they have to constantly look into is the fact that it's a beauty soap versus hygiene kind of market. A lot of people tend to get attracted to beauty soap versus they don't really have a lot of, they don't look too much into hygiene. So this is the battle that they have constantly been fighting. So we all know the pandemic hit last year and everybody was quite lost. We weren't really sure what to do. There was no vaccine. It's taking time to come up with a solution for this. The vaccine took time. So the only thing that people could really do is they had to wash their hands. And the brand actually said what kind of duration you have to wash your hands for and how you have to wash. And it really educated the public across markets on what they need to do to be safe. So what the brand really wanted to do was to ensure that all Pakistanis would finally look into and take good hand hygiene very seriously. And they would practice this as a habit because that's one way of keeping them and their loved ones safe. So the brand took a very interesting turn to this. What they did was, while the focus was to be the hygiene master brand, they decided not to compete in the market. They thought they will collaborate instead. And the way they did this is by turning every commercial into a public service announcement. I will show you the work in a little bit. You will see that even when they tell you to wash your hands, they never said wash your hands with Lifebuoy. They said wash your hands with soap, wash your hand with hand wash. They didn't bring the brand in, but they said this is a message from Lifebuoy, and they brought in a lot of influencers, celebrities, and all of it, and they made this work. So another thing is generally Lifebuoy tends to reach out to a slightly mature audience, but here they got the chance to reach out to males, females, 18 and above, island-wide, countrywide. And they had actually achieved 98% reach, and they also became the market leader after this campaign. So let's look at the work that they've done.
लाइफबॉय की जानिब से एक पब्लिक सर्विस मैसेज। साबुन से बार बार हाथ धोने से कोरोना वायरस से बचा जा सकता है। लाइफबॉय या कोई भी और साबुन इस्तेमाल करें।
आपने अक्सर मुझे लाइफबॉय को प्रमोट करते हुए देखा है, पर आज मैं कहूंगी कि जो भी साबुन है आपके पास उसे इस्तेमाल करें, क्योंकि साबुन से हाथ धोना कोरोना वायरस को फैलने से रोक सकता है। हाथों की हिफाजत, पाकिस्तान की हिफाजत।
लाइफबॉय की जानिब से एक पब्लिक सर्विस मैसेज। कोरोना वायरस को फैलने से रोकने के लिए साबुन से हाथ धोने की आदत अपनाएं। साबुन से बार बार हाथ धोएं। हाथों की हिफाजत, पाकिस्तान की हिफाजत।
हाथ गीले करके हो जाओ स्टार्ट, सोप का यूज करना है सो स्मार्ट, थोड़ा ऊपर थोड़ा नीचे, थोड़ा आगे थोड़ा पीछे, बीमारियों से हमें लड़ना है, डू द लाइफ बॉय करना है, लाइफ बॉय।
हाथ धोना सीखिए हाथों से ही।
पहले पानी और साबुन,
फिर दोस्ती मगरमच्छ
और जर्म्स को धो डालो। वेल डन।
हेड्स, टेल्स। टॉस जीतना हमारे हाथ में नहीं, मगर कोरोना वायरस से जीतना हमारे हाथ में है।
बस साबुन से बार बार हाथ धोएं। लाइफ बॉय और पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट कहते हैं, हाथों की हिफाजत पाकिस्तान की हिफाजत।
With that, I will hand it over to Famil to go through the rest of the case study.
Thank you, Wajinie. Thank you for showing all this work. I will also be talking about and showcasing two brands. One is a local brand, and I will also be showing the international brand from the region. And first up in my presentation is SoftLogic Life. Yes. So if you look at SoftLogic Life is still a new brand when you compare them against the competition, who has been there in the market for many a decade, has been well rooted. Because we are a new brand, SoftLogic Life, we at the agency and the client, we had to make a choice. The choice was whether do we stay safe or whether do we make a change. And while pondering about the decision, how do we take this brand to the market, to the people, we also knew if we stay safe, we won't make much of an impact and people will hardly notice us. So together with the client, we decided to jump in and make a big splash so that people will notice us. And when we were working on the campaign, we also looked at the insurance product characteristics, because insurance is product that no policyholder gets to enjoy the benefits of it. It's rather the opposite. How do you enjoy life insurance? And also, if you compare product A and product B from the competitor, it's mostly vanilla. It's the same. And how do you differentiate and make it different from one to the other? And you differentiate it through their riders. And for SoftLogic Life, we had a fantastic rider, and SoftLogic Life was giving a fantastic health benefit. Then thirdly, we looked at it from the customer's point of view. If you take us as people, we don't want to think that we will die because we don't want to confess or admit that is going to happen. But we always think about being sick, because sickness comes before death. So what did we do? So we said, SoftLogic Life went and said, don't think about negativity or anything like that. You just go ahead and enjoy your life, live your life, love your life. If anything happened to you, like if you fall sick, that we will be there to take care of you. And in the market context, right? And if you look at the competition, that's the change that we did when we worked on the campaign. Up until that point, up until we did this campaign, the competition was doing on the fear tactic. They were saying, if you die, what will happen to your family? If anything tragic happens, who will, do you have enough money to send your kids to college? But we didn't want to go into that route. And we just said, go there, enjoy life, and simply that we will take care of you. So that's the birth of the Ledder campaign. So it's the campaign, the good sickness versus the sickness that you don't want. With that, I am going to play the case study. Hope you will enjoy.
Accidents, hospitalization, death. This was health insurance in Sri Lanka. Until SoftLogic Life changed the way an insurance brand spoke about insurance. We turned a category that was the finality of death into one that spoke about the infiniteness of life. And this is how we did it.
Soft logic life in soft logic life in Soft Logic Life, the best health insurance in Sri Lanka.
අහලා තියෙනවද බොඩි බිල්ඩින් කරන වෛද්‍යවරයෙක් ගැන? කවි ලියන්න පොත් ලියන්න ඇබ්බැහි වුණු විධායක නිලධාරියෙක් ගැන? රංගපාන හඬ කපන ක්‍රීඩා විස්තර විචාරකයෙක් ගැන? වෙන ලෙඩ නැතුව හොඳ ලෙඩ වලින් ජීවිතේ ජයගත්ත අය ගැන දැනගන්න බලන්න මට හොඳ ලෙඩක්.
ඒ විශ්වනාත් මොකෝ වැඩේ හරිද? අමරනාත් දැන් මේ දෛව ස්ත්‍රිය සංකේතීය පියා හොයන නෑ අර වෙලේ මොකද අන්නකෝ මේ පවතින යථාර්ථය ඇතුලේ කුටුම්බගත ආශාවන්ගෙන් මම වියුක්ත වූ ස්වභාවයක් තමයි දරන්න කැමති. හැබැයි යෝ දැන් ඒ කෙල්ල හා කිව්වද? නෑ එයා බෑ කිව්වා.
විශ්වනාත්ට තියෙන්නේ පොත් කියවන ලෙඩක්. ඔයත් ඒ වගේ ඕන ලෙඩක් හදාගන්න. ඕන නැති ලෙඩක් හැදුනොත් Soft Logic Life ඉන්නව බලා ගන්න. Soft Logic Life ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණය.
මම මිහිදුවාරි මට තියෙන තද සිංගින් ලඩක්. ඒක රොක් සිංගින් ලඩක්. ඔයාලටත් සිංගින් සික්ද? එහෙනම් දැම්ම චැලෙන්ජ් එක බාර ගන්න. මගේ version එක බීට් කරන්න.
Okay, that was a long video. Yeah, so that was Soft Logic Live. So from an international work point of view, I'll be showcasing a campaign done by Lifebuoy India, which is called Chumki, the Unborn Child, a highly awarded campaign across many award shows. The campaign was developed to encourage hand washing to save children's lives of children. And this campaign was told through the eyes of this little girl, Chumki, where I'll show you the case study in a little bit, who simply wanted to live to be 5 years old. If you look at India as a market, there is a heartbreaking statistic. That is 6 million children, that is 1 in every 20 die every year before they reach the age of 5. And 44% of these deaths occur during their first 28 days. approximately half of it occurs because of infectious diseases like diarrhea, pneumonia, which can be easily prevented by simple habits like washing hands. And if you look at the brand Lifebuoy, Lifebuoy is a brand has taught hand washing with soap to millions of people all across the world for many years. So in that way, the brand has been consistently saving lives and helping mothers ensure their children fall ill a little less often. So this story of this unborn child was targeted directly at mothers and also influencers. I'm not talking about social media influencers whom we have currently, but these are grassroots level influencers, women specifically, who can spread this message across their circle. And research has proved that women are more likely to consume and share content about children welfare. Since in this particular campaign, the message comes from a relationship that is most precious, that is a relationship of a mother and her child. So with that, I am going to play the case study. Hope you will enjoy.
Every 20 seconds, a child under 5 dies due to infections like pneumonia and diarrhea. 44% of these deaths occur during the first 28 days of childbirth. The simple act of washing hands with soap can prevent these deaths. But how do you tell a mother her child may not survive? How do you make the world sit up and take notice of the problem? We brought a baby from the future to give the answer in her own words. We located an expectant mother in a remote village of India and did a social experiment on her. With the help of her husband and the people from the village, we gathered all the details we could on how the baby would be in the future. Then we found a girl that matched those characteristics of the real unborn baby and set up everything to give a surprise to her mom with a message of love and hygiene delivered from her future child.
छोड़ेंगे। ए आई, पहचाना? मैं हूँ तेरी चमकी। हे बघ दीपा मावशी वाली डॉल आणि जांबुरी फ्रॉक। अरे दो छोटी। ए आई चौंक गई क्या? मैं 7 साल आगे से आई हूँ थैंक यू कहने। आई रोज रात को पेट पे हाथ रख के गाना गाने के लिए थैंक यू। मुझे खाना बनाने के लिए थैंक यू। स्कूल ले जाने के लिए थैंक यू। और सबसे बड़ा थैंक यू साबुन से हाथ धोने के लिए। जब मैं छोटी थी तब तू हर बात पे हाथ धोती थी। सब हंसते थे तेरे पे, पर तू साबुन से हाथ धोना कभी नहीं भूलती थी। इसीलिए पहले 28 दिन मुझे कोई भी बीमारी नहीं हुई। आई मेरी तबीयत को एकदम सुरक्षित रखने के लिए थैंक यू तेरी चमकी।
मेरी चमकी ने जो बताया मैं वही करूंगी।
We premiered The Child from the Future at New York with key opinion leaders of the UN in attendance. We launched it in India with a special screening for pregnant mothers and media. We also took the message to the media dark areas via a unique traveling cinema, and for the first time in the history of a brand, we reached 400 villages.
Yeah. So today, both Wajinie and I showed you some work that went on to win big medals. But how do you transform these winning campaigns into winning entries? So these words that I have put on the slides are just not my words. These are words from past judges. When you are doing this entry, always keep it simple and keep it very logical. Nobody wants to read a load of information, so the entry has to be very simple. And also, a great case tells a story. It draws you in, makes you want to read it more. make sure that you're telling a story. It should be written like a novel. Your attention shouldn't go away from the case study. And lastly, the best cases are always simple, are always powerful, and always based on a powerful insight. So these are 3 tips that Wajinie and I want to pass on today at this session. To wrap up today's evening, I want to wrap up with the famous words of an award-winning global marketer, Fernando Machado, who has won numerous awards from Burger King and currently is at Activision Blizzard. He says in his words, we are not in the pursuit of random ideas. We are in the pursuit of ideas that will link back to our business and brand strategy, which have clear targets and objectives. And he also says, not all campaigns do everything, but they should be doing something in the direction of the objectives you have. So with that note, we end our session. I guess it's Q&A time.
Thank you, Famil and Wajinie, for sharing those valuable insights, and absolutely love those case studies. And thank you for taking us through detailed explanations on where the focus need to be. So we have Kavi also joining us for the end part of the session. And I think audience, guys, you all can ask your questions. We can have a little discussion before we end or wrap up this session.
All right, so guys, congratulations, and it was nice to see some of those very well-known cases that kind of also kind of reminds us why we are here and why we love what we do. So if I am to ask you, both of you, now there are lots of cases that you actually showed, and to get to a case video to actually inspire people through a case video, there's a lot of architecturing that you need to do, because you need to pick the right information to kind of put, there has to be surprise, there has to be wow. So how do you go about actually crafting this into an award entry? How difficult is it? And what are things that you would absolutely advise not to miss?
Wajinie, you want to go?
Yeah. So sometimes I think case entries, the written forms tend to be quite long. And there are many instances where the judges would prefer to watch the video so that, in a matter of 3 minutes, you tend to understand what was the problem, what is it that we did, and how did we do what we did. So I think your entry video has to be spot on, it has to be precise, to the point, and it has to be very interesting. From get-go, you need to explain how big your business problem was, because that is going to be the hook. Okay, so this is what the brand was going through. This is what they were trying to solve. This is where they were. That has to be clearly defined. Thereafter, we fall into the solution. So what was our thought process? Before we get into the idea and the work, what was that insight that we really felt was what worked for our brand problem, and the insight that really links with your target audience? Once you bring the insight and the problem together, and then you explain, okay, this is the thought process, this is how we came up with the solution, then your campaign just speaks for itself. So that should be the flow that we follow for our entry videos.
So just to add to Kavi, to what Wajinie was saying, when you are working on a campaign, before thinking about award shows and everything, you think about campaign craft. How do you best use the idea, and how do you best use the idea and develop the pieces to bring the idea to life? So when it comes to an award show, you also need to think of the entry craft. So entry craft is not about unloading all the information what you have in the entry. It's about picking the right information what you want to show. If you have 10 objectives, a campaign will not meet all 10 objectives. That's what, even Machado in his, Fernando Machado in his quote, he says. So in the entry craft, you need to pick which is the most relevant objective. Which objective is will give you the best chance of winning when you go to the award show. So that is what the entry craft is, figuring out what it is. So to do that, I think you need to work, the agency has to work together with the client to identify what those are. And it's all about, writing it in a very simple, in a very logical, in a very concise way. So the reader, who is a judge in this case, doesn't get bored of information. Who gets interested because it's engaging to read, and every question and every answer flows to the one to the other. So always, I think entry craft is must, and it's not about unloading information.
Can we also talk about how heavy or light the language should be? I mean, we often see people using the best, the longest, the most, out of the world vocabulary that kind of none of us can relate to. And we've also seen people write in the simplest, most format. Sometimes it's even funny. What is your recommendation, and how do you think is the best way to go about it?
What, do you want me to go, or you want to go?
Go for it.
Okay. It's a good question, Kavi. I think nobody wants to read very complicated entry because when it comes to entry craft, you need to consider the TG. So the TG for entry are judges. Judges are reading probably 8 to 10 entries a day. So when you make that entry complicated, they are going to lose interest and they are just going to skim through it. And you don't want to, get into a situation like that. And also the flip side is writing is very simpler and it's not engaging at all, and it's very slapstick. So it's about finding that right balance of not making it very complicated and not making it too simple. Because you need to keep all the judges who's reading your entry engaged. If one person is switched off, if one person thinks this is too complicated for me, or I'm too tired, it's too many big words, you're going to lose points. You don't want to get into a situation. So it's about finding that balance, the right balance, and keeping it simple but not too simple, but definitely not making it complicated.
I want to ask this question from Vaj. So now for Effie specifically, right? The creative reel is supposed to be a creative reel, but with some context. But what we see is a lot of people doing an absolute case on the creative reel, right? Now, to provide some context, judges can easily be looking at about 100 entries on that day. How would you best approach the 3-minute creative reel if it was up to you?
Okay, so I think generally we only enter the cases that we know are sure to win something, right? And we are absolutely sure of it. So then we also know that the work has worked, meaning the campaign that we have done has really worked. It's achieved the objectives it was set out to achieve. So that 3 minutes is very precious, and we have to use most of that 3 minutes to show all the work that you have done, because you don't get another chance to do that. So after leaving time for the work, then it's a matter of figuring out, like Famil said, it has to be very precise, to the point. We have to say, what is it that we try to achieve? What was the issue? What was the insight? And then the work. And that itself is like a nice flow. But more than everything, you have to figure out that right balance of showing your work, giving it the most amount of prominence, and then doing your backstory to it. So that's generally the approach that we take.
All right, interesting. So one more question, right? Often, IFFI judges, both global and local, say that you need to write your executive summary first, right? And then attempt to fill in the rest of the 7 pages. Why is it so important that you write the executive summary first?
So the executive summary is something like a 90-word summary. When you see the requirement for it, it's easy. But I know personally, I would have written the executive summary for a case entry at least a minimum of 20 times. Because that's where you really, what they're saying is correct in a way. Because if you can't get your story right in 90 words, and if you're not satisfied with it, then how are you going to expand on a 7-8 page entry, right? So that really gets you to understand where is your focus. How are you really going to focus and write this? What are the key points that need to come out? Then it's actually easy to expand into the larger story.
So,
Kavi,
Ed,
it's
sorry.
the pitch in Hollywood. You know, when you producer and then you want to bounce a script to them so you can make your $1 million movie, you only get that few minutes to pitch the idea. So it's pretty much similar. It's like that, the executive summary. So it gives a snapshot of what he's going to read. So it's like first impression. So I think first impression counts, and from there you can either get the judge or or not.
Interesting. So think about it as a pitch for your movie, get some money out of it. All right. So one last question, guys, before we go off. I think it's also something that is much debated, but also something that has been asked from especially the aspiring youngsters who are both in the marketing and the advertising community. Now, when we look at global brands, if we go on to YouTube and Google and we type in like Google case study or like KitKat or some case study, there are about 20 videos that come up. But when you look at the Sri Lankan market, there are seldom maybe one or two that the marketeers kind of has uploaded. So from a learning point of view and from a business strategy risk point of view, what are your thoughts on marketers actually doing and releasing case studies of their successful campaigns?
But you want to go, or it's the question for me?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Both of you, actually.
It's see, Kavi, we always look at global case studies like Nike and Adidas and all this, Coca-Cola and all these brands. They are readily available. I understand that you can't release sensitive data, but I think if you want to celebrate, if we have to celebrate our own work, this work has to be readily available, barring taking out all the sensitive data. But from a campaign's point of view, when you're doing a case study, it is available. It's already out there. So it's just about putting it together, talking about the idea and sharing it. So a youngster, a student can always take it as an example when they're working on their thesis or their case studies for their studies, or even someone who's starting in marketing or in an agency, if he wants to write something. So it's like something to refer to, because right now in Sri Lanka, if you see, there's not many case studies available for local brands. When we are looking for references, we always look for international case studies, because there are no case studies available. Like if I want to get something, I think marketers and agencies can work together. It's not about just putting out information, but it's about putting out information that are already out in the open. I hope I answered the question in the best way I can.
And also to add to what Famil said, sometimes even in our case entries, we don't always share a lot of confidential information. Even if it comes to sales figures and all that, sometimes we give indexed figures. So in the same way, you can leave aside certain information like that, but still, if there is a way to share a brand story, I think it's very beneficial to a lot of people and students especially. Because we struggle, I know when we were in uni, we struggled a lot when it came to finding out about local brands. You had to make an appointment, go meet a brand manager, sit, have a conversation, even for the smallest amount of details. But if these kind of videos were available, I think it will make a world of a difference.
And also, Kavi, I want to say it's not just the youngsters, no, it's also for an experienced person. Like if you want to find inspiration out there, why do you have to look elsewhere, somewhere else? Like when a local market, we do a lot of good work. So why can't we, find inspiration from our own work? So, I think there is a lot of inspiration out there in the local market that if we want to, look and, find information, it's that, we just have to showcase it.
There's a duty for the marketers as well as the agencies that are involved in this great work. And once maybe the risk of strategic disclosure is kind of passed, maybe you go forward and release these information out. Yeah. So I know I said one last question, but the last question, I think this is very important also. Now, when you look at out of Sri Lanka, there are writers, specific writers that you can also take on board a brand to write award entries, right? Sometimes there are different departments that solely focus on writing award entries, right? But some might also debate that those who are involved in the campaign can actually give a much better perspective of the campaign as well. What are your thoughts? Which is the best way to go? Because Sri Lanka is still very much new to this whole thing, and Sri Lanka can still develop either way.
Maj, you want to answer that question? I just need a little bit of time thinking.
I think since you've worked here and abroad, you can give a better perspective on that.
Yeah, so the thing is, you're absolutely right, Kavi, when you say the person who has worked on the campaign should write the entry, because when you work on the campaign, you know in and out of about the campaign and everything about the category, all the information. But it also comes down to entry craft, and you want to put the best entry out there so it wins the best metal that is available, not just the easy metal. So in that way, you need to make a decision whether you want to hire an entry writer. In most cases, or you want to do it yourself. In most cases, I think it's a combination. It's not one person writing it in most agencies. It's a combination of planners, account managers, and creative people working together, crafting the entry. So it goes through layers. Everybody checks through it. So if the entry goes through that mail and every point of the way it checks out, then it works. You don't necessarily have to hire an entry writer just to write the entry, because in an agency you have the people with the capability who can do this. And also the other thing is working with the client, because the client also can add a lot of information and a lot of input when it comes to crafting the entry, because they also know everything about their category and their brand. So it's not about one person writing it. It's about a combination of people. It's about collaborating to making the entry an award winning that can win the best possible metal, not the least possible metal.
All right, Vaj, anything to add?
Totally with him on that. It's never one person's effort. Like the entire team that worked on it has to get together and craft the entry, because we will see it from one perspective. Creative might say, no, okay, you know what, maybe this is a different. Sometimes we argue on the case. It's all with the intention of getting it right, making it one of the most attractive cases for a judge to read. So yes, it may start at client servicing from the client service department, but then everybody gets involved. From the planners to the creative teams, we all come together, craft it. Once everyone's approved, we check it again. We are still not satisfied. We go through these multiple rounds and then we close it saying, okay, this is confirmed.
Also, Kavi, I just want to add one little thing to the question that you asked. If you go to entry craft, you can craft the entry 1,000 times, but you need to, the person who is in charge has to decide, okay, this is the best that it can go. Because if there is no cutoff mark, it's not about improving the entry. From a certain point, it's not about improving the entry. It's about overcooking the entry. So that's what, a point where it becomes, it's a good entry, probably to a complicated entry. So, finding that balance, after a certain point of time, you need to take a decision saying that, okay, we are good to go. And this is the best as it is, let's just power through it. And that decision takes a lot of courage because a lot of people are involved. But that decision has to be taken. If not, from that point onwards, you'll get that point. It's not about improving your entry. It's just about overcooking it.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaji and Famil. It has been a pleasure. So, Amma, over to you.
Yes, Kavi, I know you said the last question, but we have one last question from the audience, and I feel like it's a very, very valid question. Let me read out the question. It's from Chamindri. What is your best advice to keep a case interesting when it's applied for multiple categories?
Vaj.
Okay. So one thing is, I know maybe a few years back, the practice was you write one entry and then you just plonk it into different categories. And that was really not serving the purpose, because each category has its own set of guidelines to go by, and you're supposed to adhere to it. So your case entry has to be relevant to the category that you are applying for. Also, what if you could come across instances where the same judge ends up reading both entries from two different categories? So then you have to make it different so that they see a difference in it and they know, okay, this is how you approached it. This is the reason why you added it to this particular category, and it makes sense. So yes, if you're adding your entry into different categories, they have to be written differently. Make it relevant to the category, make it interesting, and your brand story will change according to the category as well. So we have to be mindful of it and change.
Famil, anything that you would like to add?
I think Wajinie explained it very well.
Awesome. Okay, guys, it seems like that's all from the questions end. Thank you all for joining us here today. Wajinie, Famil, and Kavi, guys, thank you so much. I think that Q&A session was amazing, insightful. Right, so guys, once again, thank you so much. Please stay tuned with us. We have more sessions coming up every week, every Monday evening. Information will be shared on our Facebook page. And in case if you missed our previous sessions, you can find them on our YouTube channel. And if you are interested in, if you want us to discuss about certain topics, please do recommend us. You can go and comment on our Facebook content, right? You can inbox us. Really looking forward to hear from you guys on feedback. So thank you once again for joining. Have a great week.
Thank you, Amma. Thank you, Kavi, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for all the Effiespiration, and stay safe, everybody.